Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we're joined by Darcy Daubaras, the CFO of Hive Blockchain. But before we bring him on, I'm just going to remind you to smash that subscribe button. Hey, Darcy, welcome to The Dive.
Great. Thank you very much for having me, Cassandra.
Okay, so firstly, congratulations on Hive's uplisting to the Nasdaq. For investors watching, what specifically makes the uplisting attractive for the company?
Well, thank you very much, Cassandra. It's an exciting time for Hive to move up to the uplisting. We've been working on it a long time, getting onto the Nasdaq. What it's going to do is open up a lot of additional liquidity within the United States for our investors. Brokers are going to be able to get their hands on our shares a lot more easily than they could when we were on the OTCQX. And we are one of the most liquid traded companies in Canada. Now we're looking forward to seeing that in the United States with our Nasdaq listing.
So as we know, crypto is extremely volatile. How does Hive think about volatility when it comes to forecasting and corporate strategy?
Absolutely. The volatility is the one word that we talk about on a daily basis. So when we are looking forward, looking at our forecasts, myself taking care of the CFO role, I try to be as conservative as possible. People can see things rising, think that it's going to the moon, but I like to be a lot more conservative. And what we do within the company is take a look at our diversification. We're not just a Bitcoin company. We started out as Ethereum. We're still very strong in that. And as you've seen with our announcements with the purchases from NVIDIA, we're looking into getting into HPC computing so that we can provide some of that on the cloud and diversify our holdings that we can offer to our shareholders.
So China has tightened its grip on Bitcoin mining. We understand Hive is mostly mining Ethereum. How big of a deal is this for a company like Hive?
It's a big deal. It's coming through the whole industry. And the majority of the stuff, as you'd mentioned, is the Bitcoin mining that's trying to come into North America, looking for places to put those miners. So we're getting calls on a daily basis, looking for people to host, to put their miners, and there's just no space. So there's a very tightness within the industry for a supply and demand imbalance for that hosting space. But as ourselves, we are growing our Bitcoin mining within Canada with our purchase a year ago in Quebec, the facility there, 30 megawatts, and more recently, our acquisition in New Brunswick, which is 50 megawatts, and we're hoping to expand that also. So even though we've traditionally been an Ethereum miner and not as much in Bitcoin, this is definitely impacting us, and we're part of that ecosystem that we have to keep a real close eye on.
So stablecoins are all over the news. And at this point, it appears some form of regulation is inevitable. Do you welcome regulation? Do you think it's possible for governments to regulate? What are your thoughts here?
I think regulation is good within reason. The challenge that we have with anything going on is the different governments. Who's going to regulate it? You can have one country putting in regulation, but other countries won't. So it's very difficult to provide regulation for stable coins or anything else that happens on the blockchain because each country has a different viewpoint on them and they feel threatened. Some are less threatened, as we've seen some countries that are opening up their borders quite a bit to stable coins, and other ones would like to tighten it up and make it highly regulated for those people within that country, which all they'll do is they'll move it somewhere else. So it's nice that they're moving forward to have some kind of structure, but I think it's going to be very difficult to have something worldwide that's going to work.
There's information about Ether 2.0. When do you think this version will be released? And do you think it'll be a game changer?
Yeah, it's a great question, Cassandra. I started with Hive 2.5 years ago, and I remember on my first day, they started talking about Ether 2.0 and what it was going to do, how is it going to impact Hive, because we were purely Ethereum miner. They kept saying it was going to happen tomorrow. It hasn't happened yet. Internally within Hive, we believe it's still 2 years out. I think it will be changing the landscape within what we work, but there's still going to be a need for miners. But what Hive is doing is trying to expand and take a look at those wonderful facilities that we've got in Sweden, our flagship Ethereum site, and expanding out into high performance computing so that when Ethereum 2.0 comes, we're ready for it and we can pivot very quickly.
Okay, so Darcy, last question here. Aside from listing on the Nasdaq, are there any key timelines or events that shareholders can watch out for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things that shareholders can look out for. We just recently announced a purchase of over 3,000 Bitcoin miners that have come online immediately because we already had those miners in site in Lachute, which is in Quebec, and in New Brunswick, and they're already electrified. So instantly, overnight, our hash rate for Bitcoin increased by over 40%. We've also continually getting over the remainder of the calendar year 2021, more and more miners coming in. So each and every month, our Bitcoin mining footprint is going to be expanding. And the other thing coming up is our earnings results. We are going to have earning results coming out at the end of July, and I think investors should look forward to seeing that coming.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today on The Dive, Darcy.
Thank you very much for having me, Cassandra.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll be back again tomorrow with more great content, so stay tuned and hit that notification bell.